Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
It is such a beautiful day to be able to celebrate Shabbat together, to be able to celebrate milestones, to be able to learn a little bit of something on this Shabbat, but also to be able to gather as a community and to support each other as we do on every day, but especially we're called to notice our community and be present for our community on Shabbat. And so I invite you, as we start to step into our moments of rest and rejuvenation, to turn to someone you know, to turn to someone you don't know, wish them a Shabbat Shalom. And if you're joining us online, to type a Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. What's that? No, it's actually not.
And especially as we welcome each other into this sanctuary in our physical space, in the sanctuary in our digital space, really in this sanctuary of time, this Shabbat, we also take an extra moment to welcome Rabbi Hera Person, the CEO of the Central Conference of American Rabbis, who will be sharing some words of wisdom with us this evening and tomorrow morning. And we're always so glad to be able to learn from all the people in our community, and especially those who travel far and long to be able to grace us with their wisdom as well. You'll see not only are there ways to participate in our services in your hands with the prayer books, but also on the screens. So we read responsively and practice that getting engaged. Jewish tradition guides us to gather as a congregation when we pray. Not everyone benefits from this counsel. Some are distracted by voices around them, others by variety in music. Some are distracted by words, others by silence.
Is there no possibility for reconciliation? A sanctuary is a place of refuge.
We seek to escape from the everyday and find something out of the ordinary.
We cannot expect to leave the sanctuary a different person, but if we leave it without some new insight, thought, or question, we have not used the sanctuary to its best potential.
We enter the sanctuary as individuals, but we come together as a group.
We pray each prayer in our own way, but we do so as a congregation.
We leave the sanctuary with our own conclusions, but we come to those conclusions through shared experience. Our tradition guides us through becoming more present and more open to Shabbat by singing psalms, by helping us step out of the work week and really step into a day of rest, a day of rejuvenation, a day of community, where we can form those conclusions, where we can form our strength together. Page 13 or 131, Shiru Ladonai, Psalm 96. Shiru As we welcome Shabbat into our lives, we welcome the joy, the brightness, and the sweetness that comes with Shabbat. And so to help us do that, I invite up our Erev Bar Mitzvah, Jonah, along with his family, to help us with our candles and Kiddush. Page 2 or page 5, or in the larger volumes, page 120 and 123. When we greet Shabbat, we call to Shabbat and say, Lecha dodi, likrat kala. Come, my beloved, let me call you this beautiful bride of Shabbat. Come into this space, come into our lives, come into our hearts. Lecha dodi, page 20 or 138. our screens, we read responsively. Sing the song of Jewish women then and now. Celebrate the women of the book, the matriarchs and the judges. Honor the dreamers.
Sing of Jewish women then and now. Praise the women of the home, the nurturers and the enablers. Hallow the builders.
Sing of Jewish women then and now. Salute the women of the world, the leaders and the laborers. Exalt the doers.
Sing the silence. Sing of strength. Sing pride. Songs of joy. Sing of Jewish women then and now. Heroines all.
We sing the song of our tradition. We sing the song that calls us to be present, that calls us to prayer with the words of Baruch Hu, page 28 or 146. Please rise as you are able.
וקיים תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני שמו המעריב ערבי.
Hear, O Israel, posterity of ancient sages and antecedents of future generations. Let us pay attention, each and every one of us.
We fragment you and the world you have created, making God of splinters.
We devote ourselves to art and beauty. We glorify reason and technology. We venerate success and money.
We put our faith in politics and power. We enshrine love and happiness, charity and justice, ritual and Israel.
Help us to see that you are the whole from which these were split.
In truth, there is only you. Hear, O Israel, the Eternal One is our God. The Eternal God is one.
We invite Jonah back up to help lead us with our Shema and Ve'ahavta, page 34 or page 36.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kevod Malchutov Leolam Va'ed. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך וחיו הדברים האלה. Nitzavecha Hayom al levavecha Vishinamtam levanecha Vidibartam bam Beshivtecha Bevetecha Uvlechtecha Derech Ushochbecha Uvkumecha Ushartam leot Yadecha V'chayu letotefot Bein einecha Uchshartam Al mezuzot beitecha Uvisharecha Lema'an tizkeru V'asitem et kol mitzvotai V'hitem kedoshim le'elochechem Ani Adonai Elohechem Asher Hatziatem Me'eretz Mitzrayim V'yot lachem Elohim Ani Adonai Elohechem.
At the shores of the Red Sea, Miriam took up her timbrel and sang her song, a song of praise to God. With confidence and love, she led our ancestors through their fear and hesitation until all hands were joined, all voices raised in hymn and thanksgiving. May her example lead us too. May her song soon grow to be truly ours.
The song of women and men joined in understanding and respect. The song of God's miracles, an earth protected and cherished, a gift for our children and the generations to come. The song of a land once ravished by war, now quiet and content, her soldiers home to leave no more. The song of a world redeemed, the song of peace.
Page 40 or 158.
ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב, וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל.
Amen. We turn in our prayer books, page 46 or 164, as we turn to our Amidah. Please rise as you are able.
Adonai, Sifatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai.
Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Ve'Konei Hakol, Ve'Zocher Chastei Avot V'Imahot, U'Mevi Gehula, Livnei V'Nehem, L'Ma'an Shemo, Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Ve'ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayeh HaKol Atara Ve'Hoshia, Morid Hatal, Mechalkel Chayim Bechesed, Mechayeh HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim, Verofeh Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umkayem Emunato Lishenei Afar, Mi Chamocha Ba'al Gevurot, Umidom Melach, Melech Meimit Umachayeh, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman Atah L'Chayot HaKol, Baruch Atah Adonai, Mechayeh HaKol. We continue with the prayers not necessarily written in the pages of our prayer books, but those written on the pages of our lives and our hearts in this moment of silent prayer. Please be seated. Ratzon Imrefi, Yul Ratzon Imrefi, Vegyon Libi Lefanecha, Adonai Suri Vego. Before you, oh God, my rock and my Redeemer. Oh, say shalom bimroma. Oh, say shalom bimroma. Oh, yeah, say shalom. Hallelujah.
we take the energy of this moment and we use it to turn our thoughts and our hearts and our prayers to friends and family members, members of our community who are struggling with illness of body or illness of spirit. It may even be we ourselves who are in need of such healing. For those of you who are participating in our digital sanctuary this evening, we invite you to share the names of those that you are thinking of, especially in this moment. And for those present in our physical sanctuary, I invite you to rise and share the name of the loved ones that you are thinking of in this moment who are in need of such healing. Aileen Blum, Esther Brown, Seymour Ferdman, Gail Garbarski, Barbara Hoffman, Bob Kaplan, Larry Cart, Jim Clapman, Alice Krause, Nicole and Michael McGovern, Jay Neal, Betty Palis, Mark Pierce, Ronald Rubin, Jackie Schistel, Alan Schnepper, Valerie Shubin, Jocelyn Snower, Katie Spiro, Patricia Weinfuss, Mark Weiss, Beth Weiner, George Wittenberg, and Bob Young. We join together on page 253 or page 371, Misha Berach, Prayer for Healing. As we continue to move from Passover, our celebration of redemption from Egypt, towards Shavuot, the celebration of the giving and the receiving of the Torah, we continue counting up the days of the Omer.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu al sevirat ha'omer. Hayom shivat u'shloshim yom shehem chamisha shavuot u'shnei yamim la'omer. Today is 37 days, which is 5 weeks and 2 days of the Omer.
In these days of counting, we take note not only of the passing of time and the build-up towards our celebration of Shavuot, but we also take note of each opportunity that is presented to us in each and every moment of the days of our lives to bring tikkun, to bring a bit of repair, a bit of healing to our world, to our lives, to our families, to our community. L'takein olam b'malchut Shaddai.
L'takein olam Shaddai. Together we can heal the world. Let Hakein Olam b'malchut Shaddai. We must all work together, 'cause we are all the children of Adonai.
We take note now of those who have passed on from the earth, those who, friends and family members, members of our community, all whose lives have been a blessing, who have led by word and by deed in how to bring about such tikkun, such repair, such healing. If it is your custom to do so, I invite you to rise as I share the name of your loved one. For those participating in our digital sanctuary, we invite you to share the names of those that you are thinking of in this moment. As a congregation, we remember the recent passings of Rosalind Hamer, David Hellman, Beth Hirschfield, Fanny Krashen, and Cynthia McLean. We call into our hearts the countless civilians killed this week, caught in the crossfire of war, of terror, and of violence. And remember the following yahrzeit occurred in this time and season past. Helen Abramson, David Apter, Abraham Bauman, Susan Blinderman, Elaine Block, Linda Bolin, Norma Brown, Helena Selnick, Dina Cohen, Benjamin Crane, Lillian Danchis, Linda Estrig, Rosalie Feit, Frederick Fine, David Fisher, Annette Forbes, Abraham Frum, Suzanne Gertz, Deborah Gluskin, Edward Grace, Mark Green, Evelyn Heaps, Alan Hoffman, Sidney Huster, Stanford Stash Jacobson, David Kahan, Leonard Kahan, William Kahan, Elizabeth Haig Kearns, Lillian Klein, Shirley Klein, Abraham Miguel Kogan, Isaac Kogan, David Kost, Leonard Kozak, Jillian Krieger, Alvin Lerner, Sidney Lieberman, Ruth Lindauer, Bernard Lucius, Carrie Margrath, Shelley Mishulam, Adolph Buddy Mayer, Babette Mayer, Henry Moses, Sylvia Naiman, Ruth Newman, Eva Phillips, Helene Pine, Marvin Pitlick, Ruth Kost-Polakov, Francis Posner, Richard Rhodes, Gil Rohrbach, Stephen Ross, Betty Rothbein, Fanny Schachter, Norman Schreiber, Ruth Schwartz, Ruth Schaefer, Harry Sillins, Jack Slade, Mitchell Slotnick, Melvin Steinberg, Jane Stern, Sidney Stribling, Linda Tracy, Howard Wayne, Agatha Wexler, George Wittes, Mir Zabarez, Sam Zelmar, and Gary Zussman. Are there other names that we are remembering in this moment that wish to be shared now? Zichronam livracha. May the memory of the righteous always be for a blessing. Together as one family, we rise to recite Kaddish Yatom, page 294. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, bi'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon, uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevarach leolam omei omaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudsha b'richu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, da'amiran bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen.
Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imru
the source of peace, and peace to all who mourn, and bring comfort to all who are bereaved among us. And together let us say, Amen.
Amen.
Please be seated. It is such a privilege and an honor and a joy to welcome Rabbi Hera Person to Temple Jeremiah. We had a wonderful gathering this afternoon of the area's Reform rabbis and had a wonderful conversation around the state of the CCAR, the Central Conference of American Rabbis. Rabbi Person serves as the chief executive of this august body. She began this position in 2019, not knowing what was going to happen in March of 2020, and really guiding us, the rabbis of the conference, our constituents, through what has been an incredible, incredible journey. And we thank you for all that you've done to help us keep moving through this to hopefully to what is now the other side. Rabbi Person was ordained in 1998 from the Hebrew Union College Jewish Institute of Religion after graduating summa cum laude and Phi Beta Kappa from Amherst College, an underachiever, and receiving an MA in Fine Arts from New York University, the International Center of Photography. She served as educator. She has served as the editor-in-chief of the Union for Reform Judaism Books and Music, where she was responsible for the revision of the Torah, a Modern Commentary. And there's more work that is going on towards a new Chumash, which we're very excited about, which you didn't hear from me. She is the co-author of Stories of Heaven and Earth, Bible Heroes in Contemporary Children's Literature, as well as co-editor of That You May Live Long, Caring for Your Aging Parents, Caring for Yourself, and editor of The Mitzvah of Healing. Her essays and poems have been published in various anthologies and journals, including Bridges, a Jewish feminist journal, Upstreet, Encyclopedia of Jewish American Popular Culture, Women and Judaism, The Continuum, Encyclopedia of Children's Literature, and the Women's Haftarah Commentary. That's a lot. She is the proud mother of 2 adult children, adulting and out of the nest. Rabbi Person, it is an honor and a joy to have you and to welcome you to Temple Jeremiah. You're welcome.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here with you tonight. Just gonna find my text. Okay. So, Shabbat Shalom. Oh, right, sorry. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you so much for welcoming me into your community tonight. I'm really honored to be here. I'm going to start with 3 anecdotes. Here's the first one. I'm probably about 4 years old. I really like playing with dolls and figures of different kinds, you know, the way little kids do. And among these toys is a little rabbi, really, that my mother somehow had found for me. And because I am a child of the 60s, I had blocks as well as dolls. And I used my blocks to create what? A synagogue, yeah, that's the kind of kid I was. Complete with, you know, half-size blocks to make the pews, right? And I positioned the rabbi at the front to lead services for the other little dolls. I'm 4 years old. It's 1968. And this was my image of a rabbi, a man, in a formal robe at the front of the congregation. He's about this big in real life. Second anecdote. It's the spring of 1974. I'm 10 years old, and I'm sitting outside on the stoop of my Brooklyn synagogue. I admire my rabbi, and I want to be a rabbi just like him when I grow up. He knows this, and as he walks by, he tells me excitedly that several women are about to be ordained as rabbis, and that the first one had been ordained 2 years earlier. He says it like it's a big deal, but I'm thoroughly confused. He tells me about Rabbi Sally Prezant, the first woman to be ordained a rabbi 2 years earlier. And really, I'm just stunned, because although I had never seen a woman rabbi, it had never occurred to me that women couldn't be rabbis. That's the ordination of Rabbi Sally Prezant. So then and there, despite not knowing Rabbi Prezant and having only an imagined picture of her in my head, she became my hero and my role model. There's a lot of research out there on the importance of role models for all children, but in particular for girls, because as the saying goes, it's hard to be what you cannot see. Learning that there were now women rabbis, though I hadn't previously known there weren't, it shifted something inside of me. As an aside, I did get to know Rabbi Prezant later on, and she's still one of my heroes. Fast forward to 1995. This is not my daughter. This is actually my niece, but it's just such a perfect photo for this story, right? So my daughter, in my real anecdote, is 3 years old. We are in the synagogue for services. Our rabbi is a woman. Our student cantor is also a woman, and I myself, after a circuitous route, am now a rabbinic student. My daughter's world is full of women clergy. She leans over to her father, pats him reassuringly on the arm, and says, "It's okay, Abba, don't worry. Men can be rabbis too." Hebrew Union College was the first rabbinic school to ordain women, and the Central Conference of American Rabbis that I lead today was the first rabbinic organization to admit women as full members. But there is actually a woman rabbi who comes before any of us, someone we don't know enough about, but who must be remembered when we speak about rabbinic female pioneers, and that is Rabbi Regina Jonas. Rabbi Jonas was born in 1902 in Berlin. She studied for the rabbinate but was not allowed to be ordained until a rabbi agreed to privately ordain her in 1935. Right, Berlin, 1935. Despite the Nazi crackdown on Jewish practice, she served as a rabbi in the community, teaching and leading services. In 1942, she was deported to Theresienstadt, where she continued to serve in the camp as a rabbi, giving people hope. Very little was known about Rabbi Jonas, who in 1944 was transported from Theresienstadt to Auschwitz, where she was murdered. But after the Berlin Wall fell and a cache of documents was recovered in formerly East Berlin in 1991, containing her ordination certificate, 2 photographs of her, this is one of them, her rabbinic dissertation, and her teaching certificate, she became recognized and now celebrated as the first woman to ever be ordained as a rabbi. The truth is that even before her, there were other women in earlier ages who functioned as rabbis, even though they were not ordained and not generally called rabbi. Sometimes they were daughters of rabbis. We know that Rashi, the 11th century French Torah sage, had no sons to teach and train, and so he trained his daughters to become scholars. Sometimes they were the wives of rabbis. One example that we know about is Paula Ackerman of Meridian, Mississippi, the wife of Rabbi William Ackerman, who took over his rabbinic responsibilities when he died suddenly in 1950. And there were women who actually attended rabbinic school before Rabbi Sally Prezant, but were not ordained. They went through the program, they studied, but they were not allowed to actually become rabbis. And they were granted degrees in things like Jewish education or Hebrew literature upon completion of their coursework. How much has changed in the years since Hebrew Union College ordained Rabbi Sally Prezant? Today, 51 years after Rabbi Prezant's ordination, out of a total membership of 2,280 rabbis, there are 810 Reform women rabbis in the CCAR. What a difference. That means that basically 1/3 of all Reform rabbis are women. And if you subtract retired rabbis, that means that women are half of those working in the active rabbinate today. Young adults in the Reform and conservative communities, like my children and yours, know only a mixed-gendered rabbinate. Even the modern Orthodox world now has some women clergy, a small but ever-growing number who serve select communities. Role models abound for all children. This is a photograph of the firsts from every movement. The first Reform woman rabbi, the first conservative woman rabbi, the first Reconstructionist woman rabbi, and the first Orthodox woman rabbi. In many ways, it's a story of profound progress. The adoption in the 1980s of egalitarian liturgical language and gender-neutral God language in our prayer books and Haggadot opened up prayer and Jewish practice in important new ways, all of which was led by early women pioneers. The prayer book used in most Reform congregations, and right here in yours, right, Mishkan Tefillah, was edited by a woman rabbi, Elise Frischman. The new Reform High Holiday prayer book, Mishkan HaNefesh, was edited by a team that included women rabbis, Rabbi Janet Martyr and Elaine Zecker. We recently published a brand new Haggadah called Mishkan HaSeder, which is edited by two women, one is me, and Jessica Greenbaum, not a rabbi, but a renowned poet. This gorgeous new Haggadah, okay, I'm totally biased here, but it brings women's lived experiences and women's voices to the forefront. That's not all that's in there, but it is part of what's in there, highlighting the role of Miriam and the midwives Shifra and Puah in the Passover story alongside those of the men we're used to hearing about on Passover. I'm very proud of this Haggadah. The publication in 2008 of the groundbreaking and award-winning The Torah, a Women's Commentary, edited by a group of women rabbis and academics, highlighted and canonized feminist Torah scholarship for the first time. The importance of this publication was recognized by the Jewish Book Council when this book was named the winner of the National Jewish Book Award Book of the Year. In the words of Judith Plaskow, the mother, if you will, of contemporary Jewish feminist thought, and the author of the now classic Standing Again at Sinai, she said, "The Torah, a Women's Commentary, was the biggest thing to happen since the ordination of women." Perhaps there's a little hyperbole in that comment, but her point is important. This commentary really changed the way that we study Torah. The significance is not that this commentary replaced other Torah commentaries, but that it added to the many ways that we study Torah and filled a missing piece of what we bring to the table when we gather together to study. Another area that's seen tremendous growth since the ordination of women rabbis is that of life cycle rituals. The development of new life cycle rituals by women rabbis allowed for the sanctification of experiences previously outside traditional Jewish practice. So, for example, the development of covenantal rituals for naming baby girls that parallel Brit Milah, as well as rituals for experiences like weaning a child, first menstruation, pregnancy loss, and experiencing infertility. Through these newly developed rituals, the reality of women's lives are recognized and affirmed and moved into the open. Now, there's been a great deal of change and progress in regard to the careers of women rabbis. Though women have been rabbis, as I said, since 1972, for a long time there was a common understanding that few women aspired to the top rabbinic jobs. Women might be rabbis, but few wanted to take on the senior positions at big congregations. There was a period when there were fewer women in full-time congregational positions than those who were either working part-time or not working at all, or working in non-congregational positions. So for a while, yes, women could be rabbis, but they couldn't really take on the central, highly visible rabbinic positions. But there has been a marked shift in these assumptions and in the numbers themselves in the past few years. A new generation of women rabbis have reached a midpoint in their career and see different trajectories for themselves than many of those who came earlier. In the past roughly 7 years, more women have become senior rabbis in congregations across North America than ever before. And that's truly something to celebrate. And yet, almost all of our communal institutions are still headed by men, both inside the Reform movement and in the wider Jewish world. I'm the first woman to head up one of the major Jewish organizations in the Reform orbit that is not solely focused on women, and it has been an interesting ride. Despite my affinity with the rabbinate as a child, it took me a while to apply to rabbinic school. First, I lived in Israel for a few years after college, and then I got a master's degree in fine arts. By the time I entered rabbinic school, I had a 1-year-old child. And when I was ordained, my 2 children were just under 6 and 4 years old. I realized that I couldn't do the job of a congregational rabbi and be the kind of mother I aspired to be. Not saying nobody can do it, but that was how I felt for myself. I had to find a different model that worked for me and my family. So I chose not to go the congregational route, and I wound up working for the URJ, the Union for Reform Judaism, in their publishing division. I thought it would be temporary until my youngest was in school full-time, but it turns out that I loved working in Jewish publishing. And of course, the job grew and grew over time, but that's a different story for another time. After 10 years at the URJ, I went to work at the Central Conference of American Rabbis, where I ran the publishing division there and eventually served as chief strategy officer. It was a real privilege to help create the Jewish books that our rabbis, cantors, and congregations needed, a great way to blend my creative background with Jewish learning. For so much of my career as a rabbi, I was the only woman in the room. I had to learn how to speak up and use my voice. It wasn't easy always, but having attended a formerly all-male college provided some formative training in assertiveness. Working on publications like the Torah Women's Commentary and Mishkan HaNefesh showed me that it's not just that we need more voices around the table, but that we also need a bigger table. All of these experiences taught me some very important ideas. Don't apologize for your voice or opinion. Don't minimize your contribution. The more voices, the more enriched we all are. Be courageously outspoken. Be respectfully but unapologetically loud. Listen and insist on being listened to in return. And that's true on the bima, in the boardroom, in the table of contents, in the classroom, and anywhere you find yourself. After almost 5 decades of women in the rabbinate, tremendous progress has been made. There is so much to celebrate, and yet there is also still so much work to do to bring about complete equality in so many areas. The last years have been a sobering reminder that just as sexism and sexual misconduct and bias is rampant in every profession, right, not just in the entertainment industry or in politics, it's a reminder, as if we needed a reminder, that to grow up girl is to expect, if not accept, unwanted comments, remarks, touching, and even sometimes assault. As women in our personal lives and in our professional careers, we all have stories, our workarounds, and our scars. The national conversation that was started in 2016 about sexual harassment and sexual assault in our society at large started a conversation that had long taken place in hushed tones behind closed doors in the rabbinate. Suddenly, it bubbled up to the surface as rabbis began to share publicly their stories of sexual harassment, microaggressions, and even sexual assault. As disheartening as this may be, the rabbinate is no exception to the conversations going on in the wider world. It is the rare female rabbi who, if married to a man, has not been asked if her husband is also a rabbi. Or the joke we have all heard too often, if the wife of a rabbi is a rebbitzin, what do you call the husband of a rabbi? Do you know the answer, by the way? Good. Thank you. While seemingly cute and harmless, such comments nonetheless undermine the credibility and authority of women as rabbis by focusing on the idea of her necessarily being attached to a husband. And the comments don't stop there. Some of this may be a little hard to hear, but here we go. These are the lines uttered at board meetings or during the oneg or even at a funeral. Things like, "I've always wanted to kiss a rabbi," or "If rabbis looked like you when I was a kid, I would have come to synagogue more." And there's kind of a sliding scale to these comments from like not great to really bad. Rabbi, this one's hard. Please cross your legs when you sit on the bima, otherwise all I think is what's between them. Or, Rabbi, are you pregnant? Your shirt looks tighter. Or the man who puts his hand on the rabbi's arm at the oneg and says, Rabbi, I do free gynecological exams on weekends if you want to stop by. He's not even a doctor, just right for context. And so on and so on. When women rabbis have heard me cite these examples, they're always surprised that I know what happened to them. But that is to say that countless women rabbis have heard the same comments, because in fact, I have no idea what happened to this particular woman or this particular one, right? They are just simply all too familiar. These are not aberrations. Too often, women rabbis become the canvas of other people's ideas about femininity. We are counseled to wear lipstick or told to wear less makeup. We are told that our clothing choices are too revealing or too dowdy. Our shoes are too sexy or too stodgy. Our voices are too soft or too strident. We're too emotional or we're too cold. We're called kiddo, babe, sugar, sexy, honey. We're advised to get home quickly from board meetings so that we can make our husbands happy. And some of these undermining behaviors are on their own fairly small and insubstantial, and yet when they happen time after time, they actually add up to something bigger. Take, for example, what happens so often in settings like board meetings. I'm not here, but in other synagogues, right? Where the woman rabbi is called by her first name, and the male rabbi is referred to as rabbi last name. It's harmless, except that it reinforces the notion that the male rabbi is the real rabbi, right? The rabbinic authority. Women rabbis experience substantial professional obstacles in other ways as well. In addition to what I just mentioned, would you be surprised to know that overall, women rabbis make less money than their male counterparts? And I'm talking level to level, right? Like assistant to assistant, associate to associate, senior to senior. Yeah, we have a pay equity issue in the Jewish world. We have not yet achieved equal pay for equal work in our synagogues. And so the CCR has just created resources and guidelines for the reform movement, including implicit bias training materials for congregational boards and search committees. We're creating best practice resources for congregations, lay leadership, and rabbis. We've also just put out a new video called The Clergy Monologues, in which rabbis and cantors tell some of the same stories that I just shared here tonight in order to raise awareness of the reality of their professional lives. And there's a discussion guide that goes with it. It's a great resource, again, for boards or congregational committees that want to work on these issues. And I'm happy to tell you that your rabbi, Rabbi Cohen, was part of the effort that brought some of these resources into being. All of these issues, the issues of pay equity, how people speak to women rabbis, sexual harassment, opportunities for professional advancement, these are ultimately issues of justice. And how can we as Jews speak about and work on issues of justice in the world around us if we don't make sure that we're operating on principles of justice close to home? So I share that with you as a challenge. When asked how it was that she became the first woman to be ordained by HUC, Rabbi Prezant is very modest about her experience. The way she tells the story, it unfolded organically, but it clearly also took a good bit of dogged tenacity as well as self-confidence on her part. She explains, one day I was an undergraduate, right? In those years, there was an undergraduate part of the rabbinic program, or the rabbinic program process. And she goes, she continues, and the next day I was in the second year of the rabbinic program, and everybody said, she's still here. And there she stayed, much to everyone's amazement, as she tells it, until they had no choice but to ordain her along with her male classmates. Rabbi Prezant stuck it out, even when no one wanted to hire her, and that truly is what happened for a long time in her career, and even when no one wanted to make her a senior rabbi. She kept pursuing her dream, and because of her, here I am. And here are so many of us, not only the 810 women rabbis in the Reform movement, but also all the women rabbis who were later ordained in the Reconstructionist movement, the Conservative movement, and the Modern Orthodox movement. And also here are all the students they taught and raised, and all those they brought into the community. There is much work to do to usher in greater equity and respect for women rabbis, but there is so much to celebrate, and I don't want to pass over that. There is a debt that we all owe the early women rabbis, not just Rabbi Jonas and Prezand, and much to be learned from their experiences. By their very presence, they changed the face of the rabbinate. Through their creativity and determination, they effected tremendous change within the community as a whole. They were trailblazers and warriors and role models, and also just regular, everyday rabbis, taking care of their congregations and communities and the Jewish people. Imagine what the Jewish community would look like without women rabbis. Imagine what our synagogues would be like, what our religious schools and day schools and hospitals and hospices and healing centers and JCCs and boards of rabbis and youth groups and summer camps would be like, what our publications and our prayer books and our weddings and our baby namings and our b'nai mitzvah would be like. Actually, it's impossible to imagine, because in these little over 50 years, women rabbis have left our mark in the Jewish world in indelible ways. There's still a lot of work to do to achieve true gender equity in the rabbinate and in our congregations, yes, and there are so many exciting and meaningful ways we can partner together in that work and move us all forward. No, don't, you're a couple of slides ahead. Yeah, go back one. Okay. We'll stay there for just a little bit. Thank you. When I was chosen to be the new chief executive 4 years ago, almost 4 years ago, I recalled that rabbi figure from my childhood. So, sorry, can you go to the next one? Is that the, not the right, okay. No, it's all right. Well, we'll stick with that just for a minute. But so I recalled the rabbi figure from my childhood, which I had kept all these years as kind of a talisman. For years, he sat on my bookshelf in various offices, reminding me of my childhood self and my early thoughts about the rabbinate. For the first time in a long time, I took a good look at him. We didn't exactly look similar. He was clearly created in the traditional model of a male congregational rabbi from the 60s. I had already differentiated myself from this model, not only by being a woman in the rabbinate, which actually I had no choice, I were part of that, but by choosing a non-congregational path. I thought about what it would be like to be the first woman in this role as CCR chief executive, to look visually very different than my predecessors, and to also have had very different life experiences. And I will confess that it made me not a little bit nervous and apprehensive. Could I really do this job? Would people take me seriously? Would I be able to command respect and speak with authority? Right? And that's part of the problem of not having role models that look or feel like you. And then one of my colleagues gave me a gift that he had created on his 3D printer, a companion for my childhood rabbi, a matching female figure that looked a little bit like me. I had short hair at the time. So let's go to the next, there we go, there she is. So when I gave my installation talk at our convention upon becoming chief executive that year, I placed my old rabbi friend on the podium and said, here he is, my childhood image of a rabbi. And then I placed the new figure on the podium next to him, and I said, here she is, a woman rabbi. And let's go to the next slide. Thank you. And here they are together, the old image of a rabbi and the new. And here we are together as we head into the future. There is still much work ahead of us, but even so, it is my honor to be doing this work and leading us into the future of the rabbinate and the Jewish community. Thank you for listening. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. I'm Steve Kleiman, representing the Temple Jeremiah Board. First, a hearty mazel tov to Jonah and his family. I'm becoming a bar mitzvah tomorrow. Good luck. I'm sure you'll do a wonderful job. Very exciting. A welcome and thank you to Rabbi Person. Your talk was both incredibly informative and incredibly meaningful. Thank you very much for that. And her education of us continues tomorrow morning when Rabbi Person will be leading our Torah studies at 9:30 tomorrow morning. All are welcome to Tefillah before that at 8:30. So we look forward to hearing more from Rabbi Person tomorrow. There's always a lot of activities and happenings at Temple, so please look at the Temple website and you can get filled in on everything. I'll mention a few things that are coming up. A week from tonight, after Shabbat services, there's a Brotherhood dinner. All are welcome to the Brotherhood dinner next Friday night. On that Sunday, we're having a blood drive. There's a real shortage of blood across the country, in the Chicagoland area in particular. It's been hit pretty hard. So we're hoping that we have lots of turnout for the blood drive. You can be as young as 16 if you get your parents' permission. And then on the 22nd is the Temple Jeremiah annual meeting. In addition to having some business we need to accomplish, there's some wonderful awards that will be given out, and the reception starts at 6:30, and we'd love to see everyone at the annual meeting. And the last thing I'll mention is that on June 4th, there is a Feed the Hungry program where we prepare lunches and deliver to folks in the city who are needy, and we would love to have volunteers on that Sunday morning to help us make sandwiches. We look forward to Rabbi Person leading Torah studies tomorrow morning. That's all I have. Shabbat Shalom.
I invite you to rise as you are able for a closing blessing. Bruchim ayinu bevoenu, bruchim nihiyeh b'tzeitenu. Blessed are we as we gather together in worship and in celebration to strengthen and to join together as community. Blessed may we be from this time and always. Shabbat Shalom.
You haven't ever met Virginia? It is one of our mezzos. And this is Bob. And this is the amazing Eunice. Eunice and Minna are sisters. And Eunice had her birthday Tuesday. So she wasn't like
Lots and lots of May birthdays.
we're going to. I have to play. Well, we have to play tomorrow because we have.
Can I borrow that? Will they give me the Susie's office? Would you have her on your neck?
Yeah. Yeah. We have a bar mitzvah tomorrow, so yeah, we're back to my word. So
Where
you
you guys
feeling
going?
better? Good. You look great. You look great.
It's a pretty color on you. That purplish, mauvish.
Purplish mauvish? No, both of our moms are gone. But I'm playing in Wilmette. I'm doing this is Eunice.
Yeah. Good to see you.
Yeah. Eunice was birthday Tuesday.
Tuesday.
She was
girl.
birthday.
Cannot forget these.
I know,
Kids
we take-
will freak out. Yeah, from
Yeah.
both Emmy and Abigail.
Debbie and Abigail.
It's a bath day. Mean birthday.
So, and then I'm playing at the
We'll get this
it's a
framed.
Lutheran church right across from the library in Wilmette. He's a tenor,
We'll get this
and
framed.
it's Sunday afternoon.
Just like a regular 8.5 by 11.
See, it's Sunday, yeah. It's a
$5 frame.
he's doing
Put it up and they
a
come
series of pieces, sort of songs my mom taught me. So
I have this piece in my office.
starts at 3 o'clock.
My office calls it.
Yep, and it's in the church right across from. So, do you really? We used to perform there a lot too. So it is the neighborhood.
And I found it and I just kind of stuck it someplace.
It's St. Luke's Church, 1235 from there.
She found it. Yeah.
That's right. And it starts at 3 o'clock. It's songs my mother taught me.
Hi. Great to see you.
Wonderful tenor.
We
We're coming.
called to say we're running late.
Okay, all right.
Steve went to
Hit the
man-
table.
Steve went to man the place.
Okay, all right.
And that's at the what kind of?
It's St. Luke's, and it's right across the street from the Wilmette Library.
You guys.
I'm coming.